Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Aniva and this is Reading with Aniva, where we talk all things books, mom life, and lifestyle. So get a little bit of everything on this channel. So we are going to be doing two different things today. I'm going to be doing my April wrap up, and we are also going to be bringing back Gilmore Girls TBR. So it is now called Stars Hollow TBR. I wanted something a little bit more creative, and since we did the Stars Hollow-a-thon readathon last month, I've just decided to dub it Stars Hollow TBR. If you would like to watch, I think there are two other videos where I did back then it was called Gilmore Girls TBR from last year. If you want to go watch that. Basically, my game board right now is on my iPad, but the game board will be changing in June, so watch out for that, because I will be doing a special announcement video before it is officially changed. So we are going to start by going over the stats from April so that y'all can know what I read, what I enjoyed, what I didn't enjoy, all of the fun that we do for each month. So let's go ahead and talk about stats. So stats wise, I read a total of 12 books, no arcs this month at all. I read 4 different buddy reads. I read just over 3,100 pages, and I listened to just under 23 hours of audio. So really great. I did not read, format wise, I did not read any physical books by themselves. So I count physical books, ebooks, audiobooks, and then immersion reads, so where I read an audiobook with an ebook or an audiobook with a physical book. So that's why I don't have any physical books, even though I do have a stack of them right here for me to hold up in this video. I read 3 ebooks, 1 audiobook, and I had 7 immersion reads that were either audio or like audio with an ebook or audio with in a physical book. So there you go. I had a total of 6 5 stars, 3 4.5 stars, and 3 3 stars. My reading goal at this point is still 115 books, and I stand at 45 books for the year. Not 400, my God. And then I started 4 series and finished 1. So the series that I finished was the Vicious Lost Boys series, and the series I started are Alex Stern, Bright Falls, Dreamland Billionaires, and Sweet Monster Treats. So let's go ahead and jump over to what I actually read this month, and I will try to give as good a synopsis as I can. If you've been on my channel for any length of time, you know that I am not great with synopses. I kind of just tell you my thoughts about the book, especially if it is a series, like a book in a series that I'm continuing. I'm not going to talk a lot about the individual book. So the first book that I read in the month was Crown of Midnight. This is the 3rd book in the Throne of Glass series in the order that I'm reading them, because I did read the Assassin's Blade novellas before I read Throne of Glass. So you're welcome. There are a few different ways that you can choose to read the books, but since we are doing this as a read along with the besties, we all voted to read the Assassin's Blade first instead of reading it between, I think you can read it between like books 1 and 2 or books 3 and 4, something like that, but we chose to read that one first. So technically this is the 3rd book in the series for me. I can't tell you anything about this book, partly because I don't actually remember a ton about this book, but also because it's the 3rd book in a series. So I will tell you though what the main premise of the series itself is. We are following Selena Sardothien. She is the world's greatest assassin, and when she was 8 years old, her parents were murdered and she was rescued by an assassin trainer man, and he took her in and raised her as his own and taught her to be the world's greatest assassin. So when Throne of Glass, so in the Assassin's Blade, we see her journey before Throne of Glass. So in the Throne of Glass, if that's the book that you start with, it will open up where she is enslaved in Endovir, and she So in there we follow her through like a competition and all this, where she becomes the king's champion, so she becomes the king's assassin. So this is events after the Throne of Glass, after she's the king's assassin. It doesn't really tell you anything for me to tell you that, because it literally says it on the synopsis of Throne of Glass, but that is what this book is. I rated this book 4 stars. I did immersion read this. I don't know how long the audiobook is, but the book itself is 418 pages. The next book that I read was an audiobook. I will try to remember to put a picture of it right here, and that was Ninth House. I buddy read this book with my friend Brittany. I think she immersion read it, but I didn't have a physical copy of it. It is on Kindle Unlimited. However, I am not a long chapter girly, so I opted to just listen to it, even though I did start by reading it as an ebook. I gave this book 5 stars. The audiobook is 16 hours and 21 minutes long, which got cut about in half since I listened at 2 times speed. This is a dark academia. I don't remember if there's fantasy elements like magic and stuff to it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there is a secret society, if I remember correctly. So this is a dark academia. Cannot wait to read the second book, which is called Hellbent. Just waiting for Brittany to let me know when she wants to read that one. The third book that I read for the month was the FAE Prince. This is the the FAE Princes. This is the 4th and final book in the Vicious Lost Boy series, which is a dark romance Peter Pan retelling. They are very spicy, so just go into it knowing that. But we are following Peter Pan, and we're following the Dark One, who is one of I suppose you could call him a lost boy, and then also Tinkerbell's sons. So there you go. It is a why choose reverse harem book, and we are not actually following Wendy Darling. We are following a descendant of hers named Winnie. So it's really good. Anyway, the premise of this series is that when the Darling women turn 18, they are kidnapped and brought to Neverland by Peter Pan, because he is trying to find something, and it just progresses from there. I gave this book 4.5 stars. It was 226 pages. I read this on my Kindle because the whole series is on Kindle Unlimited. This book was fine for me. Like I said, 4.5 stars. I enjoyed it. There's not a ton of spice in the first half of the book, but once you hit the spice, it's there. It was a good conclusion, but it was not my favorite in the series. I think my favorite in the series is probably book 3. That one had a lot of spice, a lot of action, a lot of everything. This one was mostly just fighting and a conclusion. So, but I still really loved this series. Overall, I would give this series probably a 4.75 rating. The next book that I read was a group buddy read, and that was The Writing Retreat. I did read this as an immersion read. I think that I'm going to try and give this book a second chance at some point. The reason is because I did give it a 3 star. It's 320 pages. I'm not sure how long the audiobook is. I got it off of Scribd. I immersion read this, and I don't know that I was really in the mood for this book at the time that I agreed that I would buddy read it. I thought that I was, and now thinking back on it as I sit with this book, I just don't feel like I was in the mood. So I may pick this book up again and give it a higher rating. If I do, y'all will find out in the next wrap up. But that is how I feel about this book. I gave it 3 stars, which is not a terrible rating, but it also feels like it was a book that I read, and I just feel like this book may have been better than that, because it has an isolated setting, like a writing retreat. Like, it has all the things in it that I feel like I would want. But if you plan on reading this book, Brittany says do not read the synopsis until after you read the book, because the things that happen in the synopsis don't happen until later in the book, which that is true. So there you go. 3 stars. I'm gonna give this one a second chance though. All right, sorry if the angle changed. I had to take off my hoodie. So the next book that I read this month was Delilah Green Doesn't Care. This is the first book in, I think it's going to be 3 parts. I don't think there's gonna be more than that, but this is the first book in the Brightfall series, Bright Falls series, which I'm pretty sure all of them are sapphic, but I could be wrong. This one I know for sure is sapphic. We are following Delilah Green, who has to go back to her hometown of Bright Falls to photograph her stepsister's wedding as a favor to her stepsister and her stepmother. And while she's there, she connects with Claire, who is one of her stepsister's best friends and one of her bridesmaids, and it becomes a love story, you know what I mean? Now, I will say this one does have a third act breakup, which is usually not a thing that I enjoy. Usually it actually gets knocked down between 0.25 and 0.5 stars for that. However, you wouldn't be able to have this story without the third act breakup. Unfortunately, just the way that this story is laid out, it has to have it, so I did not knock down my rating for this. The bisexual rep in this is chef's kiss. I've never seen bisexual rep done as well in a book as it was in this one. So that's all I have to say about that. 5 stars. Oh, I did not tell you how many pages. It is 371 pages, and the audiobook is 16 hours and 21 minutes, which got cut down to about 8.5 hours for me. I did immersion read this, but I also had the ebook, so I kind of switched between the 3 depending on if I was like in bed, at work, whatever. So 5 stars. The next book that I read was also a buddy read, and that is Stolen Air by Sophie Lark. I read this as a buddy read with Rainy this month. It is one of the books actually Delilah Green is also, but both of these books were featured in my Cyrus vlog that I did with Rainy and Brittany, where we each picked a Miley Cyrus song and then picked a book based off of that, and that was how that it was for Realmathon, so that's what we did. We were all on Team Cyrus. You're welcome. So Stolen Air. This is the second book in the Brutal Birthrights series. Now, these books are standalones in a series, so you can read them in any order, but I would suggest reading Brutal Prince first, just because in Stolen Air you will know what's happening, but the characters from Brutal Prince are also featured in Stolen Air. It's not the couple that we follow, but they are mentioned and talked about. So if you want more background on those couples, I would read Brutal Prince first, but you can read them in any order. This is a dark mafia Beauty and the Beast retelling. We are following Nessa and Mikolaj, and Mikolaj is seeking revenge for his father. It's his like father figure, but in this we'll just call him his father. So Mikolaj is seeking revenge for his father, and he knows in order to get to the Griffins, the best way to do that is to kidnap Nessa. Nessa Griffin is the youngest daughter in the Griffin family, which is part of the mafia, and she is also a ballerina, and so this follows their love story, and I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. So I did immersion read this. I do not know how long the audiobook is. I'm so sorry, but the book itself is 338 pages. This one is also the illustrated version with the discrete covers. Let me just make sure this is an okay picture. Oh no, that one's pretty gory. But yeah, this has illustrations throughout it, so I did immersion read it so that I could look at the pictures because I wanted to do that. But I also had this on in ebook form from Kindle Unlimited, so if you want to read these, go grab them on KU. The next book that I read was a Kindle Unlimited book, but I did actually end up immersion reading this. So I read about half of it as an ebook, and the other half I listened to it on Scribd. I don't exactly know how long this book is. Unfortunately, I did not do a good job of writing down page numbers and lengths of audiobooks, but I did immersion read this one, and that is The Fine Print, which is the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. This is like, I don't know if it's dark romance necessarily, but it is, I guess you could categorize it as dark romance. So this one is the first in the Dreamland Billionaire series, like I said, which is kind of like it's like a like a spin-off kind of Disney. It's like a ripoff really of Disney. So I guess you could call it like a Disney World retelling. It takes place in Florida, just like Disney World. Like it's very much like that. And there's princesses, they've changed like the names and things like that, but you can kind of figure out which princess is which if you pay attention to the descriptions. So in this one, we are following our two main characters, whose names I cannot remember right now, so I apologize for that, but we follow our two main characters. This is I think all of these books are dual point of view, because the second one is also a dual point of view, but the fine print is a dual point of view. And basically there are 3 brothers, and their grandfather has passed away, and he has left them an inheritance that includes everything in Dreamland. So in order for the 3 brothers to get their inheritance, they have to do a series. They each have a task that they have to do. So in the fine print, our main male character, good lord, our main male character is tasked with, I believe it's building, like revamping some things in the park. So he needs to hire a new creator, and when it comes to the rides. So that's basically what we're looking at, and it flourishes, whatever. I gave this book 4.5 stars. The reason that this book did not get a 5-star for me is because there is one thing in this book that happens, that we see happen, that I hated. I did not like it. It's not a trope that I like. I do not like when characters lie, and one of the characters lies very largely. They lie about a very big thing, and I did not love that. So it did get knocked down 0.5 stars for that. But otherwise, I really enjoyed this book, and I am currently reading Terms and Conditions, so I am continuing the series. The next book that I read is also a Kindle Unlimited book. This book is called Amen, Maxine, and this is the first book in the Jolvix Chronicles, which I realized I did not add that, so I guess I did start another series. The Jolvix Chronicles is I think it's a 5-part series, but these are also standalone, so you can read them in any order. And they have like their own endings, all of that, no cliffhangers, nothing like that. So this series, if you will, this collection got put on my radar by one of my best friends, because he sent me a TikTok with the second book in it, which I will be reading hopefully this month. But he sent me a TikTok with the second book in it. I went to go find it on Amazon, figured out the whole series is on KU, and that the first book was Amen, Maxine. So I decided to read the first book. I didn't know if they were interconnected until after I read Amen, Maxine, and they're not, but I'm probably just going to read them in publication order. So Amen, Maxine follows our main female character. She is a new mom, and she's moved with her husband to his hometown in California, and she has a lot of postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression, and she's having a lot of trouble acclimating, or so she thinks. So basically her husband works for the Jolvix company, which is a tech company, and he brings home Maxine. Maxine is a virtual or digital assistant, similar to like an Alexa or a Google Drive, an Alexa or a Google Home, or like Siri. And Maxine tells our main character some things that she predicts some things that could happen, and it gets real crazy. So this is a thriller / horror. I would even give it some horror elements. So go into it knowing that. If you're not a huge horror person, I probably wouldn't do this, because it does get relatively creepy about halfway through the book. You're welcome. Brittany, I know you're watching this. This book, not for you, ma'am. But I gave it 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this book, and I will be continuing the series. The next book that I read this month was the second book in the Ice Planet Barbarian series. I did immersion read this, Kindle and audio. So all of the audios are, at least for Canada and American script, are on script. So that's how I've mostly been reading them. But I thought that I would like this book more than I did. I gave, this book is Barbarian Alien. I gave this book 3 stars. So people are pitching this as a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I suppose I see where people are getting that from. I personally did not feel like it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I did not really love this book that much. It felt super forced to me, which I understand, like the Beauty and the Beast thing, like a big part of it is like the Stockholm syndrome, like being kidnapped, finding your love, all of that. But I don't know. I didn't feel like by the end of the book that the love that the human had for the alien was 100% genuine. It just didn't sit with me very well. So I did give it 3 stars, but I will be continuing Ice Planet Barbarians because I am truly enjoying the series. The next book that I read was also a buddy read. I buddy read this with my friend Hillary. Hillary hangs out on my sprints a lot, and also we're friends on Instagram. And that is the first Mistborn book, which is, I don't remember what this one is actually called because it's not called Mistborn. It's called something else. Like it was, I don't know. The Final Empire. That's what it is. So Mistborn, The Final Empire, but I think he's just sort of changed it to Mistborn because everyone calls it that. This is an adult high fantasy. I don't know how many pages this is. I did immersion read this book because I have the audio. So 643 pages. I believe the audio is over 12 hours long, but I did read most of this on 24-hour sprints, and then I finished it while I was at Rainey's in Florida last week. So I gave this book 5 stars. It was sitting at like a 4.5 for me until about halfway through, but I really did enjoy this book. I will be probably getting the hardcovers because I don't love the size of these, but they were $15 during Black Friday, so I grabbed them while they were on sale. But I probably will be going ahead and buying these in hardcover and then annotating. So I really did love this book, and thank you, Hillary, for reading it with me. The next book that I have 2 more books. So the next book that I read for this month was Cookies for My Orc Neighbor. This is a Kindle Unlimited book. It was like 84 pages or something. It's a novella. There's apparently 3 books or 3 novellas in this collection. This book was not great. I gave it 3 stars, but we all read it. If you saw, by the time this goes up, you should see my week in the life vlog from Florida. And there's little snippets of the sprints that we did, but we did sprints on Saturday too. And we all read this book with Brittany because she needed to read it for a prompt. That was a book under 200 pages. So we all read Cookies for My Orc Neighbor. Let me try to explain this book to you. So we are following our 2 main characters. Our female main character is a human, and our male main character is a gigantic green orc, and she lives next door to the orc. He's never noticed her before. She's been there like 6 months. He's never noticed her before, but she's noticed him always. She falls in love with him. He falls in love with her. It's a whole thing. Truthfully, to understand, you would have to read it. 3 stars. But 5 stars for the experience, because I would have never read this without all of my friends. And the last book that I read this month was Throne of Glass. So this is technically a reread for me. I read this last month, but Mr. Reading Winiva, I've said this before, but Mr. Reading Winiva, as you can see I've annotated, decided that he wanted me, when I was trying to get him to do the Mr. Reading Winiva Picks My Reads vlog, I read this book first, which was probably a mistake. I probably should have read the rest of the books and then read this one, because he decided after I read this that he wants me to just do a whole sit down, a whole vlog of just the Throne of Glass series and my thoughts. So I am working on that, but I don't know exactly when it will be out because I have to read each book, and I am trying to stay ahead with on task with the besties for our readathon. So the first time I read it, I gave it 5 stars. Gave it 5 stars again. I did end up reading this on my Kindle this time. It is 404 pages, but I did end up reading this on my Kindle. I did end up buying the entire series on my Kindle just because it's just easier that way. But I will be going through and annotating this before the live show, because we have the live show on Sunday, so, or supposed to anyways, so that's it. That's why I have the second book, technically, because I read the Assassin's Blade first, and also the third book on this read. So you'll probably see Crown of Midnight again in May. So those are all of the books that I read, and I did have 2 DNFs this month. So the first DNF was We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, which I should have grabbed and I didn't, so I apologize for that. I don't have them sitting here, the 2 DNFs. I didn't think to grab them, but the first one was We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I ended up DNFing this probably like 50 pages in. I just didn't really care about anyone. And the other book that I DNF'd was Where the Crawdads Sing. I also didn't care about anyone, but I did DNF that one about 3 chapters in. It just wasn't for me. So that is all that I have. So now we're going to go ahead and play our monthly TBR game. So if you've never seen this game before, I have the game board here on my iPad. I will be setting it up so that you guys can see the game board for each roll, and then I will be picking books based off of that. So I hope that you enjoyed this part, and now we're going to jump over to me playing Stars Hollow TBR. All right, so the way that the way that Stars Hollow TBR is going to be working from now on is I have a start line and a finish line. So we're just going to roll until we hit the finish line. I don't have any like go back to the beginnings or anything like that. That may change with the new board, but as of right now, that's it. So the only time that I'm going to get a punishment is if I do not fulfill each of the prompts. I am giving myself a little bit of grace here and saying that I can go ahead and use any book, even if it's not necessarily the book that I put on my TBR, because sometimes mood reading is better for me personally. But we also have to pick an arc at the end of this, so I do have my arcs also in their own wheel, and I will be spinning for 1 arc as well. And if I do not finish the arc this month, then I will also have to add a roll to next month. So let's go ahead and do roll number 1. All right, so we got 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have a horror. All right, so our first roll was a horror. Unfortunately, when I looked at my shelves, I don't currently have any actual horror books that are on my TBR at this moment in time. So I'm not going to be doing an actual horror. I'm going to kind of stretch it a little bit, since this book has been dubbed as a thriller / horror. I don't know how true that is, but we're going to go with it. And that is going to be The Last Invitation by Darby Kane. This book came out in December of 2022, and I pre-ordered it, and I started reading it, and then got sidetracked by, I think, I don't remember what I got. Rom-comathon, I think, at the end of the year. So I got sidetracked off this book. I think I read around 20 chapters of this, and I really do enjoy Darby Kane. So that is the first book that is making it onto our list. All right, let's go ahead and do our next roll. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And for that prompt, we have a dark romance. All right, so our next roll is dark romance. Also, I'm sorry if my angle keeps moving, but I'm using 2 different tripods to record, so there's that. So the next prompt that we got was dark romance, and for that one, I'm going to be rereading Under the Night Sky by J.L. Kenna. So I actually have the original cover of this. It's the Hot Guy cover, but this is her discreet cover, and I would really love to also annotate this cover. So I am going to check to see if this book is still on Kindle Unlimited, because if it is, I'm also going to give her the read that way and the money that way. So I will be downloading this off of KU if it's still on there and annotating it. Otherwise, this will be one that I am going to be reading physically. If it's on Kindle Unlimited, I will read it on my Kindle and then annotate the physical book. So there we go, 2 down. All right, next roll. I think this is 3. So we got a 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And for that, we have fave author. All right, so our next prompt was fave author, and for this one, I'm actually going to be reading a book that I should have read in April, and that is Brent Maria Was Here by Frederick Bachman. So this was the B&K book club pick for April. I unfortunately did not get to it, but I do really want to read this. I believe Brittany gave this 3 stars, and I think Kelsey gave it 3 or 3.5 as well. So I do want to read this. Because I just want to read all of Frederick Bachman's books. I don't think it's going to be better than Beartown. I'll say that, but I do want to read this. So this is for fave author. All right. I don't know what roll we're on. 4, I think. 2. 1, 2. So this is a Mr. Reading Winiva pick. All right. So I had to go get Mr. Reading Winiva in order for him to pick one of my books. So I had him pick a book off of my TBR shelf, which is over there. It's the shelf I sit in front of for sprints if you come on sprints a lot. So I had him come in and pick a book, and the book that he picked was Little Doves by Sarah Ennis. I did receive this as an ARC. We're not going to talk about how long ago. I'm kind of thinking about just making this my backlist ARC book for the month as well, and kind of like getting 2 prompts out of the way. I think that's what I'm going to do. So this is going to be my backlist ARC book for the month. That way I don't have to try to read 2 ARCs. So that's what we're going to do. But this is Sarah Ennis's newest book called Little Doves. She also wrote one of my all-time favorite series, which the first book in that is called The Dollhouse. She writes thriller horror style books. So there's that. So I guess I could have picked this for the thriller prompt or for the horror prompt as well, but it's okay. So this is the pick that he picked. I don't really know a lot about this book because I don't like to read synopses of thrillers, but this is what we're reading, and I do not have an audio for this, so I will see if it's on Kindle Unlimited, but I don't think it is. If it's not, I will be actually reading this physically, which is totally fine. It's not very long, so I think it's doable. All right, let's go ahead and do our next roll. 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we got a Rory prompt, so I'm going to be bringing you over here to my computer so that we can spin the wheel. All right, so here is our Rory wheel. We're going to go ahead and spin. And for this one, we got 5-star prediction. All right, so our prompt was where the space that we landed on was a Rory space, so we had to spin the wheel for the prompt, and our prompt was a 5-star prediction. So for that one, I am picking up Stephen King Fairy Tale, and this is Stephen King's newest release as far as I'm aware. It came out last year, and I bought it. Well, Mr. Reading Winiva bought it for me from Half Price Books, I think, and it's on my 2023 self-destruct book list. I also have access to the audio, I think through Scribd, but also I have a Scribd sticker on the back of this, so I think you can get it on Scribd still, but if not, I will grab it off of Audible or from the library. This is supposed to be a fantasy book, so I'm hoping to love this. It is pretty big, so I am going to be reading this month, probably not physically. I'm going to be really honest. I will probably either try to find it as an ebook from the library, or I will find the audio. So that is my 5-star prediction. All right, let's do our next roll. It could be the last one. Nope. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is a large book, which is 600 plus pages. Wonderful. All right, so my board is starting to not love me very much. I think I did myself in by picking that chunky Stephen King book, but our next prompt was a large book, which for me is a book over 600 pages. So I'm going to be doing a reread for this one because this is a book that I want to reread before reading the one that just came out, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree. This book is 804 pages. I do have the audios for both this one and A Day of Fallen Night. I do want to read A Day of Fallen Night soon, so I want to do a reread of this one first. This one is so heavy, but luckily I did upgrade to the hardcover, so it's a nice floppy open hardcover. I probably will be annotating this time, so I'm trying to decide. I may just take the time to really sit down and immersion read this. I think that's what I'm going to do, because the first time that I read this, I listened to about 25% of it with immersion reading, and then I left my paperback copy at my friend's house. It's now back. Mr. Reading with Neva has it, but I read it. I didn't have the physical copy with me for the rest of the time that I read the book, so it was just the audio, and I think I will take in a lot more if I actually read the physical. If I choose to just read this with my eyes, I will be getting it either off of Kindle, like buying it off of Kindle, or getting it from my library. But that's what we're picking for our 600 plus page book. All right, let's see if this is our final roll. Nope. 1, 2, 3. An unread book of the month book. All right, so our next prompt was an unread book of the month book. My game piece went somewhere. I don't know where it went. It's okay. But an unread book of the month book, and I chose Queenie. This was an add-on for me last month, I think, or in March. I don't remember. But this was an add-on. This is a Black author as well, so we love to see it. I don't really know that much about this book, so let me just look at the synopsis. It says it's Bridget Jones' Diary meets Americana in this disarmingly honest, boldly political, and truly inclusive novel that will speak to anyone who has gone looking for love and found something very different in its place. Meet Queenie Jenkins, journalist, catastrophist, expressive, aggressive, dramatic, loved, lonely, relatable. Her boyfriend has asked her to leave their apartment. Her boss doesn't seem to see her. Her Jamaican British family doesn't seem to hear her. Her best friends try to help her. The series of men she meets online treat her hideously, and yet she doesn't stop seeing them. Queenie is in a spiral. But what makes this breathtaking debut novel so fresh is that this is a spiral mostly of Queenie's own making. The world isn't just happening to her, doing her wrong. Instead, as Queenie careens from one questionable decision to another, she finds herself wondering, as we all do these days, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Who do you want to be? With humor and heart, Queenie is a darkly comic and bitingly subversive take on modern life that will have you nodding in recognition, crying in solidarity, and rooting for this unforgettable character every step of the way. Hashtag I am Queenie. So I've been wanting to read this book for a very long time. I think at one point it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I may check to see if it's still on there. I don't know who knows this, but last month I did talk a bit about how my ADHD is not really allowing me to focus super hard on physical books right now. So while there is one book in this stack for the month that is going to have to be read physically, I don't really have a choice unless I buy it on Kindle, which I may do. If I can find it at the library or some other way through ebook means, I will be doing that. So Queenie is our book for an unread book of the month, which I have more of those and I would like to talk about. All right, let's see if this is our final roll. So we need a 5 to finish. Okay, that doesn't count. An 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we finished. So when I hit the finish line, I can do one of two things. I'm going to do an Instagram poll pics here, just because that was the last space. So we're going to go ahead and do an Instagram poll pics. All right, so our last prompt, I can kind of do one of two things when I hit the finish line. I can either do a mood read or I can choose to use the last prompt on the board. I'm choosing this month to use the last prompt on the board because I'm kind of allowing myself to mood read through the month anyway, as long as I hit the prompts. So this is the only one, this one and the Reading with Neva one are the only two that I'm not going to allow myself to read any other books than what is actually on the TBR. So the two books that I'm going to have Instagram vote on is Legendborn, which I need to reread for a third time before I pick up Bloodmarked. So there's that. And then the other one that I'm going to have them vote on is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This is the first book in a duology, so I don't mind starting a duology, even though I have 5 other like currently reading series and way more than that of series that I'm actually like in the middle of. But I don't mind that this is a duology because I could read this month and then another one next month or however else. So I'm going to put both of these on my Instagram stories. I'm going to go get ready for work, and before I go to work tonight, I will see what everyone voted on and I will go off of it that way. Hello. All right, so obviously I'm in a different outfit. So this is a few days later, and I realized I never recorded an outro clip, like a last clip. So the book so there were 2 books that were up for vote on Instagram, and they were Legendborn and These Violent Delights. So the one that ended up being voted on the most before I left work, so I think the poll was up for about an hour, was Legendborn. So I will be doing a reread of this so that hopefully next month I can fit Bloodmarked onto my TBR as well. I'm also going to go over 2 what am I trying to say? I don't know. 2 book club reads that I have for this month as well. So the first book club read is the May pick. I don't have it sitting in front of me, I'm sorry, but the May pick for Bessie's book club, which is Legends and Lattes. I'll put it up here. And then also Brooklyn from Brooklyn Reads. She is doing a read along of Hooked, which I'm reading by Emily McIntyre, which I'm reading off of Kindle Unlimited. I read it last year, but I'm going to do a reread with that group. So those are the 2 books that also need to be read this month. I don't know if I'm doing any other book clubs. I am doing Smut Den at the end of the month, so 72 Hours in the Smut Den, which is with the Late Night Crew, which is Cassidy from Reads with Cassidy. I feel like that's not right, but it is with Cassidy, Rye from Rye's Reading Corner, and Mel from Mel and Laura Reads. They are the 3 main people in Late Night Crew. And then this month, for the 72 Hours of Smut Den, Bree from 4 Paws in a Book and Michelle from Michelle's Library will also be co-hosting. So I'm super excited for that. So that's it. So I have 8 books here on my TBR this month that have to be fulfilled. So we have The Last Invitation, Under the Night Sky, Brent Maria was here, Little Doves, which Little Doves is also counting. Little Doves is counting as 2 things. So Little Doves is counting as my backlist arc for the month, and also as the Reading with Eva, Mr. Reading with Eva picks my reads prompt. Fairy Tale, The Pride of the Orange Tree, which is technically a reread, Queenie, and Legendborn. So as many of these as I can, I will be listening to either immersion or on my Kindle. So I'll either be reading these immersion or reading them on my Kindle, depending. None of these do I have only audio for, and then Little Doves is the only exception of this group, which I will have to read physically because there is no audio in existence for Little Doves. So that's what we have for this month. I hope that you enjoyed watching. Let me know down below what you are reading this month. And if you don't really know what to put in the description bar, just leave me some kind of game emoji. So like dice or cards or something down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. And all of my links are down below. There's a merch link if you want merch. The Gilmore Girls merch is still up currently, if you want to grab any of that. I don't know how long I'll leave it up, but it probably won't be an indefinite thing. Like, I probably will take it down at some point. There's also Instagram link, TikTok, I think, Storygraph, Goodreads. My Goodreads is not up to date, but it is down there if you want to follow me on there. And until the next one, love you guys so much. Bye!